Hello, and thank you for joining us here on the Neutral Zone. I am Phil Milani, joined as always by my trusty sidekick, my partner in crime. Really, the best way to describe this person is my everything. It's at Eric Dalala.
Phil, it's good to be back with you. I know some people have been disappointed. They've lamented that we only had like 15 to 20-minute episodes of the Neutral Zone. So we're going to do a nice 4-hour show today just for them.
Yeah, we took 6 weeks off, a little bit of a countdown into camp type of series here. And that's because my agent negotiated that into my contract that I just need a little bit of time away.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think on Twitter, Phil, to maybe our friend Tom Agnetti, who he checked in every week. He let us know that he was still listening. He wondered what happened. And you said, listen, it's part of the deal here with the Broncos that I get to be away from Eric for an extended period of time. It's the only way you'll be here. It's why we're back on Zoom today.
Yes.
And that's how it is.
Another commenter said, because we did the Countdown to Camp series in the studio together. Yes. And a commenter said, I actually kind of prefer the low-grade video, the wacky Zoom stuff.
Yeah, well, they can't really tell as much what we look like.
Exactly. Yeah. And, these guys watch a podcast on these 60-inch screens, right. 4K,
It's impressive.
It is. It's good for the hair. I mean, our hair, we like that in high def, but the rest, not.
So, Phil, anything else going on with you over the last 6 weeks that kept you away from Neutral Zone Nation?
Well, I know that you shared that you got married. So like that, a lot of people believe that was the only reason why we were away.
Well, yeah, I think I said one of the reasons in a tweet, but I appreciate the well wishes. I think Lisa Lane left a message.
Yes, she did.
She also said this explains why Eric and Phil have been wearing the same clothes for the last 6 weeks.
Yes.
And
congratulations, Eric. You're now.
Thank you. I'm now what?
You're part of the married fraternity. You've joined.
Are you married?
I am married. Yeah, I am.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I learned something new about you every day, but I think Neutral Zone Nation would like to know that in my best man speech, he said that he brought up my everything, my partner in crime.
Yeah.
And then plugged the Neutral Zone. So maybe we have some new listeners here that are joining us. If so, welcome.
Yeah, welcome to the wedding party, the Dalala Deisley wedding party. Welcome to the show.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's not the only reason, Phil. You welcomed new life into the world.
Or for my firstborn, 2 weeks old now. So
yeah.
Yes, not sleeping very much, but got to enjoy some time at home with the little guy.
Yeah, and I'm honored to be Godfather, of course. Who else could it have been? No one. Ben Swanson applied, but of course did not get that role either.
Yes.
But of course, all of us at Neutral Zone Nation, Phil, wish you and your wife the very best.
Thank you very much. Everybody's doing well, healthy, feel very blessed. And now I'm back at work.
Yeah, enough personal nonsense now. Let's get to the football.
Back at work, camp already underway, Eric. As we were recording this, it's Wednesday, day 1 in the books.
Yeah, I've seen enough. I know. I think 17-0 probably is reasonable, and then we'll just see what happens in the playoffs. But you like your chances with home field advantage.
Yeah, the number 1 seed, going for the first ever undefeated 17-game season.
That would be true.
It'd be really nice. Yeah. We got a good show here, though, in store for NZ Nation. We'll talk about the quarterback battle. We heard from both Drew Lock, Teddy Bridgewater after their first practice at camp. Some funny sound bites, Eric, from these guys.
Man, I liked it. Teddy, I don't know if I can ruin it now. I'll wait, but one of the better quotes I've heard in a long time.
Yeah, these guys, they don't seem to be too stressed out about the quarterback competition. Like, they kept things pretty loose up there.
Yeah, I think if you are too tight or you're too wound up, you're just going to drive yourself insane because this thing is not ending anytime soon. Vic Fangio said on Tuesday, Phil, he might just keep us guessing all the way up to week 1 in each day in practice. Just say, I don't know. That would wonder if the Giants, they probably wouldn't like that very much, the New York Giants.
What if he just kept that going all season long? I don't know who's going to start this week.
We did that in 2017, actually, I think.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah. I don't know if Brock Osweiler is coming back though. I'm not sure.
I would never rule anything out.
Yeah, exactly. And then we'll have a nice little conversation with Von Miller. I had a chance to catch up with him the other day before camp got started. He kind of had an interesting tone in his conversation, just about where his mindset is right now. He said that he's at peace, Eric, at peace.
At peace? He said that once or something like that?
No, he said that about 1 million times.
Oh,
yeah. He's real peaceful right now.
Yeah. I mean, day one of training camp, he was at peace in the backfield. So that's good.
Yes, that was a good sign. That was a good sign. I agree. So we'll hear from Von and then maybe talk a little bit about where he's at, where Bradley Chubb is at. Did not really practice on this Wednesday. So maybe we'll have a little bit of an update there. How does that sound?
I like that.
Pretty good show. Pretty good show, Eric. So day one of the quarterback competition, probably something we are going to talk about ad nauseum every single day. Who won that day? Who did this? Who did that? Who is your winner on day one?
Yeah, I'd give a slight edge to Teddy Bridgewater just because I think he was more consistent. A lot of completions, Phil. Nothing too far down the field necessarily. A lot of short to medium range throws, but he completed the ball, got it to the Broncos playmakers, didn't make mistakes. Kind of the steady Teddy that we expect.
Steady Teddy.
But
Did
Drew,
you just come up with that?
No, I think that's been some people use that, I think, derogatorily. I think that's a good thing. I think if you're a team that has as good of a defense as the Broncos and as good as skill players as the Broncos, then it's kind of like Von Miller said, Phil, in his press conference. He said, I could play quarterback. He said, put me out there. I'll throw touchdowns to Jerry Jeudy. I'll just throw it up there and he'll score.
Well, so, Eric, of course, we all know you're in the Teddy Bridgewater, the Teddy B H2O camp.
Insofar that I think he's probably the likeliest to win the battle. It doesn't mean, again, we're not rooting for anybody in particular, but yeah, I do think that he's got.
I saw you on the sideline today. You had that big Teddy Go Teddy poster.
I know our old friend John Jordan, he's upset with me, Phil.
Yes.
He thought I was still going to be on the lock train. It's not that I'm off the lock train. I hope that Drew puts it together, but I think today, Phil, was probably a good kind of microcosm of what we've seen from Drew in some games. Started off slow, didn't throw any interceptions today, neither did Teddy. But kind of, it was a little bit, it looked rushed at sometimes. He held the ball and kind of scrambled a little bit. It wasn't always perfect. And then kind of later in the day as they went on, he definitely got more comfortable. Threw a nice long touchdown in a tight window to Trinity Benson. He threw a nice pass to Jerry Jeudy across the middle, then found Jeudy for a touchdown. So he definitely got things going. And we've seen that against the Chargers and the Falcons where Drew kind of turns things on late. I think for him, it'll be about, he's got, in my mind, the ability to make those big plays that maybe Teddy doesn't have. Mm-hmm. But the question is, would you rather have, 5 completions in a row that are shorter, or have a couple incompletions and then a long one, or a sack and then a big play? And that's really kind of what the coaches are going to have to decide between. And we've heard again and again, Vic Fangio and George Payton said it. I think George said it on Tuesday. A lot of this is going to be about consistency. Who can be that guy week to week, who can make the plays, play to play, series to series. So that'll be interesting to me. But Phil, the one thing that for Drew, that's the advantage, is it's his second year in the offense. And while he might not be the unquestioned starter, he's definitely a lot more comfortable. He made that clear. And then the other thing he said, Phil, that I thought was interesting is he said, I kind of learned I can't just throw the ball wherever I want and take these crazy risks. Yeah. I'm now making calculated risks. We talked about that all year last year, is that he has to learn to avoid those mistakes. It sounds like it's finally sunk in. Now we just have to see if he can do it.
First of all, let's just take a moment and say that we're very lucky to be having this quarterback competition at all after Drew Lock's near-death experience driving across Kansas. He explained that in detail today at the podium, said that a tire crossed over I-70 and the nut came off and it hit his windshield. So
yeah, and lodged in place in the windshield. I mean, it was.
If that's not a sign that he should be the quarterback, I don't know what is. Eric, I don't know what is.
Yeah, he's everybody's coming after me, even this lug nut. Everyone's out to get me.
Do you think that like Teddy like loosened up like a bolt on
Oh
that?
my gosh,
Yeah. Do you think that's what
I
happened?
don't think so.
No. Okay. But yes, Drew said that he feels like he's a smarter quarterback. I like to hear that. He said that he's making calculated risks, but the gunslinger is still there, which that was something that I wanted to hear was like, okay, does Drew just like really tone it down now and just only take the safe plays? And he knows he's in this competition, so he just is afraid to take a risk here and there. Because that's not what I think Broncos country wants. They still want that quarterback that's able to go out there and win a game. They want Drew to be Drew, but maybe just smarter. So I like to hear that. Drew also said that he put on some muscle. You know, he must have seen me working out or something, stole my workout plan, and then incorporated that into his own because he bulked up a little bit. Said he's up to 230, where last year maybe he was playing maybe 12, 15 pounds lighter. So maybe that'll help with some of the injury problems that we know that he's gone through. So I would say every time you hear from Drew, he feels very confident. Like there's a sense of confidence that you hear from him, where Teddy's like a little bit more measured, a little bit more soft-spoken. And I think that that's maybe reflective in their play too.
Yeah. Well, a few thoughts there, Phil, to look back on what you said. One, 230, that playing weight is often what dentists come in at, of course.
230. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Secondly, you talk about Drew's tone. It is confident. And I think that that's kind of different than it was late last year. There were times when he was defiant is probably the right word, or, I don't know if moody is too far, but I mean, he definitely wasn't happy toward the end of last year. And he's kind of still facing the same questions. Can you do this? Are you in can you win this competition? He kind of took those questions in stride, was able to laugh some of them off, like in a good-hearted, lighthearted way. But it's clear I know we're going to talk about Vaughn in a minute, but it seems like Drew is at peace and is, he's going to work hard and just see what happens and go from there. But Phil, you talk about those calculated risks and not just being safe. That's when he was at his best Wednesday, is when, there's a tight window there for Trinity Benson, but he's going to take that risk. Or there's a tight window there for Jerry Jeudy across the middle, and maybe it's not the perfect throw, but it's a smart risk to take. You got to get that ball in there to move the chains. That's going to make defenses back up and allow your run game to really thrive. I mean, those are all things that are important, and that's when he thrived in practice, rather than when he was a little tentative early and kind of looked for the check down, or maybe held the ball a couple beats too long. When he's in that calculated gunslinger mode, that's when he's at his best. And so one of the things I'll be looking for, Phil, as we keep going through training camp and get to these preseason games, can he be that earlier in practice? Or you go out there for the first team period, go out there and throw a strike, or you're out there in preseason, don't kind of go 3 and out on your first possession. Find a way to move the ball down the field and get points, because it's not just about, I know everyone's made this, Phil, like if Drew avoids turnovers, like that's going to do it. But I think part of me is like, Teddy's the more veteran quarterback. He has more experience. So if both of them are just going to play like kind of the complete short passes and get it to your playmakers and be a floor general, if you will, then Teddy makes a lot of sense, just because he's done it for longer, what he is. So if Drew's I think Drew needs to make some plays to show, hey, my upside is worth keeping me as the guy.
Especially like in 7-on-7, Eric. I think that like one of the things I hate to see is when the quarterback gets a ball, can't find anything, and then they just blow the play dead. To me, that's like got to be frustrating for the offense. And so like sometimes just let it rip a little bit,
Well, Vic did say on Wednesday that he decided that was, he doesn't want guys running into each other. So some of that where you see Drew hold on to the ball a little bit long, or Teddy, and then blow it dead, it's because they don't want, in a game maybe you're throwing it, but you don't necessarily want a guy to hit someone else in the moment. But
just earlier, make a decision and just let it, if it gets intercepted or whatever, you live with it. But like at least you're in the game, you're in the game, you're in action. That's what I want to see. So, and I liked what Teddy had to say too. He said he's a survivor, Eric. And I know that you enjoyed that quote.
He goes into the jungle, Phil. He comes out with a fur coat. He comes out with a headband made of leaves. I mean, that's how you show up every morning at training camp before you change into your Broncos polo.
The animal protection groups are not going to be happy about it.
No, no,
Yeah.
PETA? No.
Yeah. Upset.
Well, maybe it's like a faux fur coat, and maybe there's like a store in the jungle that he purchased it at.
Got it. Because I was gonna. Have you ever seen that movie where Leonardo DiCaprio's like, I think, The Revenant?
I have
Where
not seen that.
he sleeps inside a horse for warmth.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
yeah.
was a little too much for me.
And he has some sort of encounter with a bear, I believe. Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't. That came out when I was like 6 or 7, so I was not allowed to watch that.
Yeah. But yeah, Teddy showing a little more personality. I thought that was funny. He just said, I'm a survivor. He can scrap a little bit. He can claw. And, he's going to need that here. I think that he's quickly got a bond with his teammates. At one point I saw him out there just chatting with the defense, as the Broncos had a little bit of a water break. That was something new. I thought, Eric, they kind of just stopped practice for like maybe a good 3-4 minutes, and everybody just kind of chilled for, twice during practice.
Twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, what's going on? It's time to work.
Yeah, we were yelling like, come on, like this is valuable time. We don't need water.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but I think Teddy is definitely bonded with these guys, with the defense, with a lot of his offensive teammates. And it's part of the quarterback competition, but it's just odd, I think, for a lot of these guys, because you're like, maybe you sit with Teddy one day and you're like, oh, is Drew going to think that I'm like on team Teddy?
Ooh,
and then like,
yeah.
oh, you talk to Drew after practice and you're like, oh, is Teddy mad at me now? It's a little bit odd.
You think they got to pick sides and just stick with it? Like, hey, sorry, I am, I'm team Drew. Sorry, I can't,
I'm sure some guys are probably probably pick their side.
Yeah. It's kind of like if you're like team Britney Spears, you can't be team Christina Aguilera.
No.
Or like NSYNC and Backstreet Boys. Like you got to pick. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Those are like artists like before you were born.
Yeah, I've never heard of this. Free Britney, right?
Free Britney. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, that's the first time I've heard of her.
Eric, last thing I was going to just talk about is like, what are you expecting to see here over the next week? Because we'll be back next week, of course, here on the Neutral Zone. We'll talk more about this, but what are you hoping to see over the next handful of practices?
Yeah, so I mean, we've still got 2 weeks essentially before the first preseason game. The first preseason game is August 14th. You have joint practices 2 weeks from now. So they're going to get very familiar with what the defense is doing, but the defense is going to get very familiar with what they're doing. And so there's going to be days where things don't look so good, I think, offensively, just because of how good this defense is. Who can find ways to make some plays, to not get frustrated, to stay consistent? That's what it's going to be about. And, it may be possible that like Drew wins more days, but then like Teddy is more consistent over the course of the next week, and you just have no idea like what does the coaching staff want? Is it about the consistency? Is it about going out there and winning days? But I feel, to me, it's very close in my mind. I know I've kind of leaned toward, I think in the end, that it will be Teddy's job, but you could tell me that Drew wins. I would have no difficulty believing that. I think it's that close. I go back and forth almost every day, kind of convincing myself what will happen.
You're in your own head.
Yeah, I am in my own head a little bit about this, but I just think I hope we see progression, and that it's not, because one of the things I didn't like last year during training camp was Drew kind of took a backward slide with about a week left to go in camp. I don't know if you remember that, but he played pretty well. And then like with a week to go, he started making mistakes, started turning the ball over. It kind of started with that first stadium practice. And so I'm hopeful that doesn't happen this year, and that he and Teddy are both able to build consistently, or at least go in that right direction.
It's been a long time, Eric, since we've seen an offense go out at training camp and just light it up. Like probably since 2014, that was probably the last time where the offense was out there just doing things to the defense, and since then it's always been like the defense is making plays, and like training camp doesn't look real exciting. Because when you're at training camp and the fans are out there, which is awesome that the fans are back out now, but like they only cheer for the offensive plays, unless it's like an interception, but like a PBU, like nobody's getting all fired up about that. They want tubs, Eric, they want touchdowns, and it's been a while.
Jerry Judy's doing his best, Phil.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, Eric. Do you believe in the mantra, iron sharpens iron?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Like if this offense doesn't look super great or like explosive during camp, red flag to me because this defense should be really good. Now it's a bad sign if this defense ends up being 20th in the league and the offense doesn't look great. That's an issue. But
if this defense is 20th in the league, there's going to be a lot of problems.
Yeah, that's true. The one thing with the iron sharpens iron and going against a defense this good is that I do think from a confidence standpoint, at some point you want to see things work and like what would work against an average defense. And it's possible that like nothing will work all that well against this defense because it's strong at a lot of levels. And so then if you're Pat Shurmur or you're Drew Lock or Teddy Bridgewater and you're trying to figure out, hey, how do we attack the New York Giants? That might be a little bit more difficult. So maybe you learn some things against Seattle. Maybe you learn some things in the joint practices against Minnesota. Maybe you learn some things against the Rams. That's going to be valuable information in terms of, hey, where is this offense really at?
You think Pat Shurmur's fired up for that Giants game? I think he's going to be fired up.
Yeah.
He probably wants to pour 40 on him or something,
Yeah.
Eric, before we move on to my conversation here with Von Miller, you kind of hinted at this earlier, but we got an email from one of our favorite listeners, John Jornad. Okay, Eric. Normally, John Jornad is firmly in the Eric Dalala camp. Okay, he's been living in Eric Dalala camp. Okay, but he says that he's been on summer vacation, similar to us, but he just got around to listening to the show from a couple of weeks ago. He says he can't believe it. I agree with Phil again, this time on quarterbacks. You two seem to have switched positions. Eric was behind Drew last year, even saying not to pull him when Phil suggested it. Eric even said Drew had higher upside. My take is Drew has the reins for one more year. And then he goes on for a couple more things, but he said that email got stuck in his outbox, and it was like almost like his phone thought it was so crazy that he was agreeing with me. What do you think about it?
I'm sorry. I'll do my best. I do still feel that Drew has higher upside. That has not changed. I just think that they're going to go with a guy that is more consistent. And so that's why I think Teddy at the moment, but maybe by this time next week, Phil, I'm going to say, hey, Drew's
flip-flop. You're going to flip-flop, aren't you?
Well, I think you should have
flop.
What I don't like is people who are like, I'm so stuck in my opinion and about being right that I refute. That happened around here a lot with the Paxton Lynch situation.
Yeah,
that people were, they were so like gung-ho about Paxton being great that when Paxton was not even good, they were like Paxton should be playing over Trevor Siemian, and it was like, no, he should not be.
Yeah, that's true.
Sorry, I feel like Paxton takes a lot of shots on this podcast.
Yeah, he does. That's true.
Mainly from me. To be fair, best of luck to him. He's joining the Canadian Football League.
That's true. So I think so is Shane Ray. So
a
couple former Broncos up there.
Yeah.
In the Great White North. Eric. Yeah,
that's true.
John, welcome to the Phil Milani camp. There's always a spot for you here. So
there's plenty of room over there because no one else is up there.
It's just that I'm welcoming. That's all, Eric.
Yeah.
Not that there's room. We make room.
Make room. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get to my conversation with Von Miller. Had a chance to catch up with him before training camp gets started, and hopefully you enjoy our little chat here. Von, 32, but George Payton says you look like you're 25. How are you feeling?
I definitely don't feel 32. And when I'm out here on the football field and I'm working out, I definitely don't look 32 in my opinion. And I just want to just keep going. I just want to, just take whatever God will give me. I want to play 5 to 7 more, maybe less, whatever God will give me. I'm at peace with. 11 years is just a blessing. The average is 3.5. So, to make it to 11 and go to 2 Super Bowls and do all the crazy stuff that we did, I'm really at peace with it. But that doesn't mean I'm content. Like, I want to break records and I want to go 20 years and I want to play like, DeMarcus and Julius Peppers and all of these guys. But I'm at peace, and I think it's just a different spirit that I have coming into the season.
Talking about those records, Defensive Player of the Year, Comeback Player of the Year, those are some of your goals this year?
Yeah, always. That's every single year. I think every time we line up, but that's one of the first things I say. And I think being at peace, whether I do or I don't, will really be the driving force for me being able to play well. And I think that's the ultimate goal this year, is just to play well and be the teammate and type of the player that I know how to be, that the fans know me to be, and just to keep going.
You look like you were in the best shape of your life last year. Then a year away. Do you feel like maybe you got something to prove? Maybe people forgot just how good Von Miller is?
No, I mean if they did, it's cool. I mean, I'm about to play football in 2 months. So whatever it may be, whatever questions that they have, I think they'll all be answered with due time. And I'm just at peace with whatever happens. Playing 11 years in the league is a long time. And to go to 12 and go to 13, go to 14, 15, 16, whatever that may be, man, I'm just super blessed and super excited to go out there and play.
We'll let you out of here on this. How's the golf game?
It's getting better. It's getting better. Sometimes I hit some good ones, sometimes I hit some bad ones. Sometimes I might start the course off great and I might end it bad, and vice versa. So I'm still trying to put it together. I've only been playing golf for 3 months, so it's super encouraging for me. Hopefully I'll be able to play in a Tahoe celebrity tournament, all these other celebrity tournaments that they have. So it's only been 3 months, so I'm excited to see what 3 and 4 and 5 years will look like.
Okay, put the clubs away, get the pads, cleats going.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Von.
Yes,
My thanks to Von Miller for spending a little bit of time to chat there. Eric, George Payton said that Von might be 32, but he looks like he's 25. What do you think about that? He says that he feels great, and even on day one, it looked like he was flying around.
Yeah, I mean, there was one play where he was off the edge so quickly, and I think Drew rolled to his left, and Vaughn ended up over there for what would have been a sack. And I turned to somebody afterward and I said, that was Vaughn, right? Because we were kind of at an angle, and they're like, oh no, that must have been the guy on the left. Cause like Drew was all the way over on the left. They were like, it couldn't have been Vaughn. And I like kind of figured out who that could have been and realized there's no way it was him. And I was like, no, Vaughn came all the way over to make that play super quickly. Still looks explosive. It was just one day. I'd like to see it kind of over the course of a couple of weeks here. I do want to see if he plays any preseason games. It'll be interesting to see what his snap count is. But yeah, I mean, he should be at least similar to what he was a year ago, you'd hope. He said, I'm not thinking about the ankle, not thinking about the contract, not naming any sort of goals of his in terms of numbers of sacks. He's just going to go out there and let it ride, which is different from any attitude we've seen from him in the past, to be frank. Like I think a few years ago, he said 30 sacks. And then he said, hey, now I got to be defensive player of the year. Like each year there's kind of been like something that he said, I want to accomplish this. And this year sounds like he's just going to enjoy it. And hopefully enjoying it leads to wins. That was kind of one of his proclamations from the full group media, Phil, because a lot of us don't get one-on-one time. We talked about group, you get one-on-one time, but he said, we're going to win a lot of games this year. I don't know how many games, but we're going to win a lot of games.
Yeah, I mean, he did say that he always sets those goals of like defensive player of the year. This year, setting the comeback player of the year as a goal. But I agree with you, Eric. He did seem like, yeah, those are goals, but he just seems like more like, hey, I know what I am and I know what I'm capable of. I don't really need to boast about that or anything like that. I asked him in that conversation there, I said, hey, do you feel like you need to remind people like, hey, I'm still Von Miller? Like, don't forget about me. It seems like maybe the rest of the league has kind of moved on to like the Bosa brothers or, the Watt brothers still. Like, it seems like these people are getting a lot of the claim of being like the premier pass rushers. But I asked Von, do you need to remind these people like, hey, you're still Von Miller? And he said, I'm about to play football in 2 months. We'll find out, so I kind of like that. I kind of like a little bit of, hey, let me just get to work here and I'll prove it out on the field.
And he's at peace.
He is at peace. He said that a lot of times. What do you think that meant, Eric? Like, you think he's like, I'm happy with how my career's gone up to this point. He still has a lot more that he wants to accomplish, but like, he feels good. He's not resting on his laurels, but he's sort of like, I'm at peace with who I am right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you undergo a serious injury like that, you've probably got to think about at that age, you probably got to think about your football mortality. Am I going to make it back? Am I going to be the same player? He probably still doesn't know if he's going to be the same player. And so you probably spend a lot of time reflecting on what have you done? What have you accomplished in this league? For him, that's 3 first-team All-Pros. It's, I think, 8 Pro Bowls, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 9. It's, a Super Bowl MVP, obviously. And so I think as you go through that injury, he's probably like, you know what, if this doesn't work out, or if I don't finish my career in Denver, or if I'm never quite the same player I was, I'm happy with what I've done. And I think in some ways that's freeing, because now you don't have to go put pressure on yourself to go out there and be like, man, if I'm not the same Von Miller, like it's a disaster. It's like, I'm going to ruin my legacy. Like, in my eyes, he probably needs, and I know we talked about this and people didn't like it, but in my eyes, he probably needs like 20 more sacks in his career to guarantee first ballot Hall of Famer, or like put him in that conversation. But he's probably a Hall of Famer. Maybe 10 more sacks would solidify that. But there's no pressure to go out there and like be the 16, 17 sack guy. So if it happens, that's great. But if it doesn't, I don't think he needs to be disappointed in himself.
Yeah. I mean, that could be what it means, but he did seem like he's still
you think it's something else. Like he was just zen that day.
It could have been just Zen. Yeah. And then the next time he's going to be talking about, hey, I'm still the Ferrari, you put in premium gas in the Ferrari and you take off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Could be hearing that again. So,
well, it was interesting. And I think we talked to him in June, and he was like, I don't want the highlight of my career to be Peyton Manning and us winning a Super Bowl.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was like, well, that was only 1 month ago. So what happened over the break?
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe he's meditating.
Maybe.
Could be good for him. Yeah. Yeah. Visualize the sack,
Yeah.
Be good. It'll help that Bradley Chubb is back feeling pretty healthy here. He didn't do too much on day one, but Vic Fangio said that they're working him back. They're trying to get his conditioning back up, but that he is healthy. After missing the offseason program, you don't want to rush things too much here with Bradley Chubb. But I'll say this, Eric, I saw Bradley Chubb near the cafeteria, and it looks like he's been working out.
Yeah, he looks jacked. And
he's been hanging out with Drew Lock. I mean,
maybe. I think Bradley probably weighs more than 230 if I had to guess, but who knows? Yeah, I'll say this about Bradley. I am hopeful that everything works out, because he has the talent to be a 17, 18 sack type guy that leads the league in sacks, especially if Vaughn is close to his old self, but not quite there. So like he's still requiring attention, but Bradley like gets there a little bit faster or something like that. I think it's quite possible that you could be talking about Bradley at the end of the year as a potential defensive player of the year candidate, as a guy leading the league in sacks. I mean, I'm really high on him. I think he's going to be the team MVP. I think it's the year he takes that jump. It's not really a contract year, but it's kind of a contract year. The 5th-year option, obviously, next year is guaranteed for him. But I do think there's some motivation there to say, hey, let me earn this long-term deal. And so I just hope he stays healthy, because that has been kind of an issue the last few years. Obviously, he had the ACL, missed some of the end of last year, and wasn't really right until October. So I hope this ankle doesn't bug him. I hope we see a full season of Bradley, because I mean, he had 12 sacks as a rookie, Phil. Like, and it felt like it took him a month to really get into that. So to me, what is is Vaughn's 18 and a half? Is that the franchise?
I think
single
so.
sack
Yeah,
record?
I think so. Yeah.
So, I mean,
Dumerville did something crazy. I'm not sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, to me, it's possible that Bradley challenges that. And I just hope that that's the case, and that he doesn't struggle to another injury riddled season. Because in addition to being such a player with potential, Phil, he's a great guy. He's a leader on this team. He's one of those core pieces that George Payton talks about. Like, you want to see this guy succeed.
He is a nice guy. Bradley, right? He's a nice guy. I mean, let's just face it. He's a nice
Is that okay to factor into?
I think so.
My analysis.
Yeah. Yes. I think you want leadership,
Yeah.
I think though, when you get on the field, no more Mr. Nice Guy.
Oh, no. I mean, this guy,
You want to be feared out there as a defender. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want like the quarterback when he goes to sleep on Saturday to like have nightmares. I think that's what you want.
About Bradley Chubb.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I will say, yeah, I think, like last year he made it to the Pro Bowl coming off that ACL injury, but like it wasn't like an amazing season. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
he was a Pro Bowler, but it wasn't like, whoa, he's back. I still feel
Right.
like he still has a little bit of room there to be like, no, I'm the guy that you drafted 5th overall.
Right. Well, and part of that was because it was a 7.5 sack season. He had a lot more pressures than that, but it just wasn't like this dominant season that you'd seen. And we've seen him force fumbles in the past. We've seen him make game-changing plays. That's kind of the next step for him. And unfortunately, that's kind of what Vaughn has gone away from the last couple of years, because even when he was healthy in 2019, Phil, no forced fumbles, I think, for the first time in his career.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's kind of maybe moved away from that a little bit. I hope that Bradley moves into that category where there's a strip sack that ends a game. You think back to Vaughn's best plays, not just a Super Bowl, but my second game with the organization, he strip sacks Andrew Luck to end the game. And like, that's what you need from this guy.
Yeah. Like that Phillip Rivers game where he accidentally spiked the ball there and then killed the clock. It's because he was afraid of Vaughn, so.
Yeah. Von Miller, 18.5 sacks in 2012 is the franchise single season record.
You're right.
Yeah. Vaughn holds 4 of the top 7 seasons.
Wow. That's pretty good.
Pretty good.
Maybe he doesn't have to move out of that game-changing area. Like maybe like Vaughn and Bradley, they could be like roommates there. They don't have to.
Maybe it's like a 2-bedroom apartment.
2-bedroom apartment. Yeah. Could be. Yeah. And they could just be best friends and just sack quarterbacks, make game-changing plays.
And it would go for like $2 million in Denver.
Yes, it would be. You can't find that. Yeah.
No.
Not with these interest rates there.
No.
All right. Well, anything else you want to talk about with that, or?
Not with Bradley. No.
Should we get to the shoutouts?
Well, I just think before, if there's a couple players that could catch your eye or that you.
I'm sorry. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Let's talk about that, Eric. A couple of players who you've got an eye on here.
Yeah, I'll say a couple of things here, maybe 3 points. One, I'm interested to see what does Vic Fangio do with all these corners. What does he do? We can't really tell you guys how much nickel they play versus dime and all that stuff.
Not supposed to get into the strategic aspect of the game.
Right. But Vic Fangio said in his presser that they played some dime on Wednesday, so we can, I think, talk about that, and they did. And I'll just be interested to see how they get Pat Surtain on the field and when and what kind of impact he plays. He had a nice play on Wednesday where he kind of came up and made a tackle close to the line, but nothing spectacular on day one. So that's one thing. Jerry Jeudy just makes plays all over the place. This guy is ridiculous. We saw Justin Simmons say he can be an all-pro. He can be a Pro Bowler. I feel really good, Phil, about both of our picks of him being the offensive player of the year for the Broncos. He's just special. He gets open. There's no guys near him. And then what impressed me most was on Wednesday, at least, Phil, I think he had 3 catches, if I remember properly, if I counted correctly.
Which is hard for you.
All 3 of them were not like right on the money.
No.
And he caught all 3 of them with no issues, no drops or anything like that. Knock on wood, Phil. I'm recording on a wooden table. I hope that's behind him, but it looked like it. And then the final thing I'll watch for, Phil, Cortland Sutton made a couple catches on Wednesday back into team drills for the first time since tearing his ACL, but there wasn't any sort of like big play from Cortland. So I want to see before the end of camp, like one of those long bombs to Cortland, or him going up and making a play in the red zone, or him showing like, hey, I'm still Cortland Sutton. Yeah. That to me is important to see.
I agree. And right now, it's hard to like really judge the interior line guys. Hard to judge like running backs stuff, right now, just because they're not wearing pads. What the 6th practice of camp they have to wait, right, Eric?
Yes, Tuesday is the first practice with pads.
I am like, one of the things I have my eye on is what's going on with Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. I just want to sort of see how things get split up there. That's something I'm paying attention to. And then the other thing is the interior defensive line. Shelby Harris has not been out there really. Mike Purcell not out there. I want to see, like depth at that position is like kind of like some unproven guys maybe there with like McTelvin Agim there, and like we just want to see how that plays out. I just want to see if I'm just paying attention to it. I guess that is what I'm saying. So,
I mean, to clarify, they were out there Wednesday.
Yes.
Not to scare people. They were practicing Wednesday. They're back in action, but you're right. They have not been out there. So who is?
I just want to sort of see how the depth works there. Like how are they ready to rock and roll here? I'm just paying attention to it.
Yeah.
The other thing I was paying attention to Wednesday, did you see those helmets the offensive line were wearing?
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. I want to know what's going on with that.
Vic Fangio said it was some sort of, I think, concussion prevention related thing.
Yeah. It's good.
So
maybe it's like to strengthen their neck muscles, like, hey, a heavier helmet, and then your neck muscles get really
I think it's so if you hit helmets, it doesn't create the same sort of collision.
Yeah.
Like it absorbs the blow.
Yeah. It's kind of like a bumper on a car is what I would imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good.
You think maybe that's a good thing to wear in the games?
Yeah, exactly. You got the bumper on his helmet, and then you got the belly, so he's got Quinn Miners. He
needs one of those things on his stomach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did notice he had the full shirt on, the full jersey on when he went out to practice today.
Did he? I wasn't really watching the I like.
You just watch the skill positions. That's all.
No. I was paying attention to right tackle. I paid attention to some of the center. But as Vic Fangio said,
Calvin Anderson,
Miners has to prove that it's even worthy of being a competition. So it doesn't sound like Sir Lloyd Cushenberry III is in danger at the moment.
Yes, not at the moment, but
we are big fans of Sir Lloyd Cushenberry III here on the New Jersey.
We are. I did talk to Mike Munchak a little bit on Wednesday, and he just said we're looking for the 5 best guys out there. So that's what there is competition everywhere, Eric.
Not to be confused with the best 5 guys, which could be really anywhere as long as they have a good burger and some fresh.
But not a sponsor of the
fresh
show.
Potatoes. No, they could be though.
Could be if they wanted to be.
Yeah. Anybody could be.
Talking about 5 guys a lot more often if that.
Yeah. Yeah.
We can work that in.
We do a segment, the best 5 guys of the week.
Easy.
Yeah.
That could be a weekly feature right here.
Yeah.
Whoever's listening, maybe you can make that happen.
Yeah.
All right, Eric, time for shout outs. Anybody you would like to, it's been a while since we've done it. So.
Oh my gosh, it has been a while. I don't even remember who to shout out or who not to shout out.
Probably Liz Gerald's.
Yeah, Liz Gerald's parentheses Manis.
Yeah.
Important to shout out her.
Yes.
Have we done a podcast since the Carl Nassib news came out?
I think so. Yes, we have.
Oh, we have. Okay. Yep. Shout out to him again.
Yep.
Shout out to all the Olympians. Very fun to watch some of these sports, Phil. I enjoyed ping pong.
Yes, the badminton I've enjoyed.
Oh,
that. Yeah. I've wondered, like, how do you get so good at that where you're like, I should try out for the Olympic team?
Yeah, I think your parents probably force you into it. It's probably what happens.
Oh God, they're like, they've invested in badminton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would like to, this is a little more serious, but we have not recorded a podcast since Greg Knapp passed away really tragically in a bicycle accident, was hit by a motor vehicle. I was only with him here for 1 year, Phil. I know you overlapped him for longer, but I just remember him being the nicest guy, the kindest guy. It showed just as much interest in you if you worked in digital media as if you were the starting quarterback on the football team. And we've seen some of these remembrances come in from across the league, and it's clear that was not unique to us, but just what a sad loss for the NFL and for his family and everybody that knew him.
Yeah. Important to say, like it wasn't like a bicycle accident. It's not like something like he fell off his bike or anything. I mean, a car hit him.
Yes.
So that tragic, like I got to know him pretty well because he would take the early bus, Eric, when we were on the road. So like we'd all stay at the same hotel, and then we got to the game pretty early. He liked to get to the game early and I think he ran stairs and like kind of just went around the stadium and that kind of thing. So he'd be on the same bus as me, and me being the R that I am, Eric, I kind of try to get, sidle up next to him and be like, hey, what's going on with the game plan today? Like, what do you think about what do you think about this defense? Something like that. And he would always say, Phil, I don't want to talk about that. He'd say, how's your wife doing? Have you been at any fun restaurants recently? Or what are you going to do during the bye week? Things like that. And that's just how he was. He was always talking about other things besides football. He talked about his love for cycling. I think that's something he did a lot here in Colorado, and just a great guy. Heard all these like testimonials from players around the league, and really a heartbreaking loss. So definitely feel for everybody who's, his family, his friends, that's just a terrible, so young, Eric, so.
Yeah. And I did like what Robert Saleh, the Jets coach, had to say. He said, Greg would have wanted us to approach this football season with joy, to make the most of it, to look forward to it with enthusiasm. He said, Greg would have been mad if we sat here and kind of lamented for too long. So that's, I don't know what the Broncos will do, but maybe it could be nice. The Jets come here in week 3. Obviously, he was their pass game coordinator. I don't know if something will happen, but that could be a nice moment if there was some way to recognize him. And I just think good reminder to do what you love and to tell people you care about them and all that sort of thing. Because, as you mentioned, just a tragic, unexpected thing to happen.
Yeah. Football-wise, he coached some of the best quarterbacks out there. Steve Young, Michael Vick, Peyton Manning, the list goes on and on. So, Trevor Siemian.
Yeah, that's my guy.
Yeah. So, and then of course we started the show with some shout outs for ourselves, Eric. So shout out to you for getting married.
Thanks. And shout out to young Arthur, who'll be on the podcast before we know it.
He will be. Yeah. Just when do you think it's too early to start podcasting? Really not.
I kind of expected him to be on this one, so I'm a little surprised. Exactly. But as our friend Eddie Pascal, who works for the Raiders, probably the only person that we can even tolerate that works there. But he said Arthur's going to be a legend, and I think we all agree with that sentiment.
True. He'll be here interviewing John Elway, grilling him
before we know it.
Yeah, that's true. So, all right. Well, I think that's going to do it for this edition of the Neutral Zone. Next week, we'll have a lot to talk about. A whole week in the books here at training camp. Maybe a look ahead to some Hall of Fame action. Eric, you and I will both be heading out to Canton for some celebration there. Steve Atwater, I know, is going in. I think John Lynch also going in, and that's it, right? Two. That's pretty good. 2. That's pretty good.
Was there one other one? I'm like a P-A-Y-T.
I'm PM, and I'll be going again. So I'll be going again. So I think
that must be it.
PM.
That must be it.
Yeah, that must be it. No, of course. Peyton Manning.
Oh,
yeah. I don't know if I can say this, Eric, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. I got a sneak peek at his bust.
Ooh.
I saw a little video. And
can you say that on the air?
I think fans are going to like it. I'm just really excited for the whole weekend. So
yeah, should be nice. Always Canton is a place like no other.
Yes. And obviously Steve Atwater is like family to us, and to be able to see him, be immortalized like that, it's going to be a tremendous weekend. So all that plus more coming up next week on the Neutral Zone. This week's episode, all about the quarterback breakdown, conversation with Von Miller, and then maybe some players that we've got an eye on. Jerry Jeudy, of course. That's going to do it for us. For Eric Law, I'm Phil Milani. You've been listening to
The Neutral Zone.